Welcome back to Cannabis in Canada. This is Thursday, August 20th, 2015. We're continuing to cover a lot of different issues across Canada here when it comes to patient and patient providers. And one of tonight's guests is going to be Mr. Dana Larsen to talk about the Vancouver regulations and basically how that does or doesn't impact the future of patient providers and patient access here in Vancouver. And it's been a disputed debate that we're looking forward to, or discussion if you have it, we're looking forward to bringing to you, basically to calm the cannabis culture here in BC and have a better understanding of exactly what's going on in relation to big business and the cannabis culture. Now, with that being said, we first have back on the show Mr. Corey. Now, Goldenowski, was that right, Corey?
You got it this time, Jason.
Yeah. Okay, good. There you go. I told you I'd get it eventually, brother. Now, you got an update for us. Now, you're a representative of Macros. You do some great work there. And now, of course, Macros is one of the 11-year standing clubs in Edmonton that happened to get raided and was also a founding member of CAMCD or a signee of CAMCD from the early days. So it's important about what's going on there because there's a lot of good support, a lot of rallying, a lot of good things happening in the Central Plains because unfortunately there was also Mr. Price that got hit as well. And, for these two dispensaries being shut down, there's been a big uprising and outcry from those medical patients that they were providing for. Corey, what's your update for us in relation to City Hall and the peaceful assembly, of course, in accordance with the charter that you have to update us on, brother?
Yeah, yesterday we headed down to the legislative grounds, and we put up some speakers and a PA system, and ended up doing some yelling at Rachel Notley well, not really yelling, but more of an invitation to come on down and speak with Aaron and start discussing maybe getting some rules and regulations set in place here for dispensaries in Edmonton. Last week at City Hall, actually, Aaron ended up rushing into City Hall. He went past security and everything, said that they were in there for an important meeting, somehow slid on by, and he actually ended up getting to talk to council there, and they ended up saying that they would sit down with them and begin discussing regulations. So that was pretty big, that we got movement like that going. So
I find it interesting, though, that they're willing to sit down and talk to him after they raided him and they know that he wouldn't apply under the Vancouver regulations because he now has a criminal record and is facing persecution. Well, he doesn't have a criminal record, but he's facing persecution, which would, of course, impact his ability to get a license.
As well as with his parents, right? His parents are facing 5 different charges, and, his brother also got arrested. And then never mind what his spouse has to end up dealing with, as well as the kids, right?
Yeah, and of course, this is what I go back to, too. It's a patient and patient providers. The patient providers are getting hit right now, but the patients are being displaced, and there's nobody to help them. And there was a historical case called Hitzig that says medical patients should not have to rely on corner street drug dealers. And what I feel is we're going backwards in favor of, in my own opinion, what's a monopoly. And we're going to be getting into that during the show today, talking about the top-down system that has been implemented here in Canada as of April Fool's 2014. So at your City Hall Assembly, what took place? What happened? Aside from that, did you get a good turnout? What's your message?
We had a great turnout yesterday. The weather was great. We ended up having individuals come up and tell their story on the microphones. They each shared their personal interaction with how cannabis has been healing them with the medicine and helping them with their suffering. And each and every single person actually had the same story about prescription medicine. Each and everyone have battled prescription medicine and have gotten off prescription medicine due to the use of cannabis. So what a score that is. They're finding their relief and they're actually starting to get mobility back. There's a big bounce back from what's happening, and they wouldn't be able to be getting through their days without it. And each of these people that told this story were all people that were visiting Macros. Macros was the ones that were helping these patients because the LP system was failing them, or they're having doctors that were telling them no here in Alberta, right?
Yeah.
So,
I heard that a parent recently, the same as what we just had with baby MJ here in BC, the Ministry of Children and Family intervened and over the use of oil with a child.
This is just heartbreaking and huge. I met this family yesterday at the hall, and this is something that Macros was also doing, was helping this child get CBD medicine. As we know, CBD is not illegal here in this country, right? And Natalia, she is only 4 years old. She has interactable epilepsy, left temporal lobe, they're thinking, but they're unsure because they're still calling it idiopathic, right? And so since 5 months old, she's been receiving the system's medications, which have shown no results ever. And then March came around this year, they went into Macros, they got CBD, And she went down from having 70 grand mals a day to almost having none, like pretty quickly. Never mind the absence seizures that she was also having with that. Those were also starting to fade right away as well. And by the end of June, the seizures have stopped. So like the CBD medicine has been working full effect. And that was also them weaning her off of the systems medications. So she's been off the systems meds since the end of June. And this stuff has just been kicking butt. Somehow, this social worker, we're not quite sure exactly how this social worker got a hold of this information yet. But this social worker came and showed up in their lives and told them that she showed up at the written contract discussing to them, okay, if you don't stop giving your child CBD medicine, we're going to come in and we're going to come and take your child. So I don't know if this is a child protection service or if this is child kidnapping service, but that's completely just wrong. So in response to this handwritten contract, it wasn't even a court order yet. This was handwritten by the social worker herself. And luckily, the mother, Lita Paulu, she's a paralegal, so she's kind of familiar with things. And she was just like, okay, well, this isn't a legal contract, but maybe they're going to come back with one. Who's to say? And they were going on vacation, and they kind of just went away yesterday, right? And just kind of left it like that. So who knows what's really going to be happening from there? It's pretty scary to say. I mean, they even showed this social worker the results from the brain activity showing that the CBD has been completely working and stopping these seizures. And this social worker still ended up going and getting a proper court injunction, from what I hear, to have this child taken away because the CBD medicine is still occurring. Meanwhile, they have their doctors standing back 110% wanting this child to have the CBD medication, and they want to run a three-month trial with this child, and you still have the social worker saying, no, we're going to pull your child away from you if you try to give it another drop of CBD, and we want you to start giving it back the system's medications, is what they want to start giving back to the 4-year-old. It's just completely insane.
Well, again, this is where the ministry intervenes at very critical times. We see this with baby MJ here. Hospital administration, after an injunction, in this case in British Columbia, was put in place for this 6-month-old child to be able to prevent the ministry from actually inducing life support or inducing end-of-life care, basically pulling life support and allowing this child to pass under the care of the Children's Hospital. And to me, this was just so absurd that I'm glad Justice stepped in and did this. It wasn't so much about the CBD at that time, but since then, it's the hospital administration was going to meet with different people, key activists, key people, testing people in the community to make sure the baby had the right dose. And all of a sudden, the ministry shows up again, and it's a no-go, and the hospital cites policy, et cetera, and insurance. And again, in this case, you're talking about a 4-year-old that's going from 70 to 0 seizures. It just blows my mind that the ministry thinks they can intervene or do intervene, and there's actually not a lot we can do about it. They actually hold so much power, and they get a judge to sign off. Until you prove yourself innocent, they actually are the ones that seem to be right all the time. And that's the hardest part about the way the system is under any child protection services.
Yeah, it's just insane. Like we ended up, we were on the phones all day today. There's a group of us. There's a whole crew out here. Everybody's going wild, just trying to get some organization to help these guys out in any way we can. We started talking to some lawyers. Some lawyers got in touch with her as well. And, this is going to be the same thing. We're going to have to get an injunction on the order, obviously, is what's going to happen. So we're going to have to drum up some cash to come up with the retainer fee once again. And so we started talking. We're going to get a GoFundMe page set up for them. So maybe you guys can get them on the show next week and actually have a nice formal interview with this family. They're great people. They really need the help with this one for sure. And we need some support once again. And we got to turn this around and stop this from happening. This is the third family within weeks that this is going on with that has been brought to my attention. And it's just a small amount of time and such serious matters.
Yeah, I really don't understand. I mean, again, I point to Dr. Sanjay Gupta's Weeds 1, 2, or 3. This is the Surgeon General's nominee for America. You can't get any bigger. If people cannot accept that doctor, then really your ignorance is a blitz to the situation. And this is something that Canadians need awareness, they need understanding. But parents, most importantly, we need policy in these hospitals. It's from coast to coast that we're seeing this. And it's not so much that hospital administration don't want to try. It's that people keep pointing out insurance and the fact cannabis is not a medicine in this country. But yet we have $25 million companies set to sell it to us as such.
Yeah, Miss Ambrose is just, sitting on her little stool there, just preaching away, oh, this is not medicine, and yet each and every one of them programs says medicinal in front of it, so I don't know who they're trying to kid. You know, the hypocrisy is alive, so to speak. And, you know, going back to little Natalia, the 4-year-old, I mean, without the CBD, and when she was on their medications, the child was pretty much catatonic, you know, like completely zombie, unstable, really moody, and, you know, and the seizure's still happening, right? The CBD comes in, the child is having a life. The child is becoming a child. She's able to eat, feed herself. She's running and playing. She's smiling. You know how huge that is for a family to see that and to see your child have that life all of a sudden, and then have this ministry come in and just want to take your child away for finally finding something that works and put her back on poisons. Like, this has to come to an end. It's completely ridiculous, and it's evil. It's completely evil.
It absolutely is, and it does need to come to an end. Unfortunately, there's going to need to be this dialogue, this awareness, and if you have it, this war over supply and distribution in Canada. So, patient providers are not dealers; that they're the actual healers that they are. We're the ones that taught people about how to save babies and stop seizures.
Amen.
You know? So to now turn around and say, "Oh, we're going to legalize, and these $25 million companies are going to sell it," you know, to the general public or to the medical, you know, both in my opinion, it just seems to be a very big hypocrisy, especially when the federal government once again holds that there's no medical value. Like, we can argue that with them till we're blue in the teeth, but the empirical evidence is on our side. Government still holds there's no medical value and allows these companies to set up and then shut down mom and pop shops like Mr. Price and of course Mr. Bott's location there at Macros.
Speaking of Macros, I mean, this isn't the only child that was going there. This child was getting this herb CBDs from Macros. And there's several other children that are without this medicine. The reason that they have to go to these places is because our federal government is failing the people and they don't offer this medicine to children. It's not happening. So you have to go in through a dispensary route to be able to get it. That's why these things are so damn important, because look at what it's doing for these children. And never mind that, but everybody else who's suffering from all sorts of conditions, right?
I was just going to say MS patients, all the different patients that suffer from any form of seizures benefit from cannabinoid therapy. And this is something that just can't be underestimated. And people, again, patients shouldn't be criminalized, nor should their providers. You know, when the federal government's failing, once again, to provide what is a community necessity for medical patients across this great nation. On that note, is there any shout-outs you want to give there before we go to commercial break and bring on Mr. Dana Larsen and take some questions and stuff from the crowd as we enter this discussion around Vancouver city regulations and how they do or do not impact potentially patient access and whether they're constitutionally sound or not. On that note, Aaron, any final, or sorry, Corey, any final shout-outs, brother?
I definitely want to give a shout-out to everybody at the Macros crew. Those guys are still trying to drum up some cash to come up with their retainer fee to go beat these charges. I mean, their first appearance is coming up in September, and at this point they've raised about $1,500, and it's $5,000 for that retainer fee. So these guys weren't criminals. Like, you know, these guys were helping like children like Natalia be able to get medicine. So they shouldn't be having to go through what they're going through. So please find it in your heart to go to GoFundMe.com/macros and put something down for these guys, even if it's $5. Like, anything's going to help, and it all adds up very quickly. And then also a big shout out to the Cannabis Rights Coalition here in Alberta, to Sheila and Vaughn, and geez, everybody else. There's so many names to mention. There's actually a pretty good solid core out here, and everybody's on the same page, and everybody wants to push back, and everybody here is also looking for that free and fair market. And that's really what's really big and important in the upcoming here, and looking for legalization. None of this decriminalization, that's not enough. Decriminalization, sure, that's nice, but we want the legalization.
Yeah, well, that's just it. If we allow legalization in this country, the question is, who's going to be the supply and distribution routes? Will it be Molson Cannabis and Labatt's Cannabis, or Tweed and Tilray if you have it? Or will it indeed be a more free and fair market where we can have farmers markets and we can share genetics like we have for the past 70 years or 80 years under Reefer Madness? And that's a lot of the stuff we're getting to and what we're moving on to. Because in my own opinion, I believe that we've went from Allard in the courtrooms and from Smith in the courtrooms, and we're now into the ground issues of supply and distribution, and that's what we're going to come back to right after commercial break. Thanks again, Corey Golanowski. I got it right.
If you're going to want that free and fair market, you got to get up there and you got to get out there and start saying what you need to say and fight for it. Otherwise, we're not going to get it. So come on, folks, come join us all together. We're all online. Everybody look for each other. Join the umbrella.
Absolutely.
Please, thank you.
And thanks again, Devon and Sheila, our amazing national representatives in your region there, for the wonderful work they've been doing to help you guys, as well as baby MJ. Much more to come when we come back from commercial break with Mr. Dana Larsen. We'll see you then.
Welcome aboard the Extract Express. I'm Justin Loizos, reporting with Cannabis in Canada. Here I'm with the Cannabis Rights Coalition, taking Extract Express on another adventure. This time we're taking it out to London for a fundraiser to try and save our gardens. So we're loaded up here with a lot of great things. I'm enjoying it. We're having a good time. We're just getting started.
Our mission and our goal was to really be a vital part of the community and provide an essential service for the medical community.
First of all, I would just like to say thank you for putting on this great event. And right now, the Cannabis Rights Coalition looks like they have the government up against the wall.
I'll be damned if anybody's gonna go to jail for growing and smoking their own medicine.
You have to stand up. If you just sit back in your house and medicate, it's not gonna change anything. So you have to have your voice heard.
Having a great time and medicating, educating, and raising funds and awareness for the fight to save our gardens. And I know how important the coalition is to me, to the thousands of members that we represent and that are protected by this injunction and that we're fighting for every day.
Welcome back to Cannabis in Canada with Jason Wilcox. We're sitting here at the Art Gallery. It's 8:30 in the morning. We got a few people that are standing around that are saying they're not going to go anywhere. And believe me, there's going to be a lot more as the crowd grows. So will the activists continue to make their moves.
Just remember me the right way. Want you to keep in mind today better than yesterday. And for my fellow companions, all I could do was pray. But remember me like your memory, just like a fragment of a kin, friend, or enemy. So many enemies trying to get into me. I'm just a broken part, feeling detached off. Cause trying to get in this game is like a scratch off.
Opus, otherwise known as McMahon. Brother, we go back a lot of years. You know, West Coast is in the house. What do you think of what the hell's going on with this?
It was interesting. You know, the tent started going up. The city officials came over, and I noticed they had the biggest guy they could find from the city wearing the Viz vest. But we stood up for our rights. Had the cops sort of all hanging around the outside, so there's their backup, obviously, in case, like, what are we thinking? We're gonna jump the city guy?
We're just here assembling on the stairs outside the Vancouver Art Gallery. I'm trying to have a peaceful protest here today. The city knows that, but it looks like they are out in force. Just remember my
Why aren't you guys on the perimeter? You were on the perimeter before, and now you're right in the crowd with a camera. What's the reasoning for the camera in the crowd? You should be on the perimeter because now you're engaging the activists, you're engaging our cameras. Go back to the perimeter where you belong.
We're just keeping the peace. Peace.
I'm amazed because it's been 15 years we've been doing this and we've never ever seen this sort of provocative stance from the police.
To have that police presence there and to use those intimidation and harassment tactics the way they did is outrageous.
There was non-communication. You know, we didn't even know.
And he said, if you keep selling cannabis, we're going to arrest you.
It was an organized effort. It was almost like it was rehearsed. It was almost like it was funded from not the VPD.
I was scared that they were actually going to get away and deter people from Cannabis Day.
I said, we're going to start selling cannabis. That's our protest. The laws against selling cannabis are why we have Cannabis Day. So he said that he understood that and that they were going to be realistic.
Back, he's under arrest. These guys got extremely violent, extremely fast.
Shame on the city of Vancouver. Shame on the VPD.
We have no need for all these officers. They're working all of these people here. You should send them back somewhere else away from here. We don't need to have this police presence.
Knowing that we were not violent and they continue to push us. And then when passive civil disobedience and passive resistance is implied, why use mace?
We were not violent. It was excessive. They were trying to push me back.
Look, you guys don't need to be here. You're causing problems by being here. You could be inciting a riot.
Don't let listen to me. Anybody at that booth, you don't let anybody give out a dab. You tell them all, don't give out a freaking dab. Don't share any joints with anybody you don't know. Period. It's very important right now because they got us all. They're watching us and they know some of us just left. Welcome back to Cannabis in Canada with Jason Wilcox. I've got Owen Smith here and Ted Smith, and we are on the island. Guys, what do you think about what's going on here in Vancouver?
It is a sad day, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but our soldiers have stood their ground, and hopefully we'll be able to move ahead and have a better Cannabis Day next year.
This prohibition causes more and more pain and suffering as all of its horrible parts are exposed.
Cannabis Day, its roots are in medical, and clearly the MMPR just got ruled unconstitutional. So how dare they try to step in and shut down Cannabis Day?
So sad, after 20 years of peaceful events, that the city would do this. It's not, the influence of cannabis causing all this harm. It's the law, again, just causing harm in people's lives.
The prohibition that's held up by the federal government is causing all of these problems, and Vancouver City is trying to look good for the government by trying to crack down on these people, but it looks terrible. We have a poor, sick people who are being stepped on in the street.
It's just the saddest day in cannabis activism in this country's history.
Okay, welcome back to Cannabis in Canada. We're now sitting here with Mr. Dana Larsen and Jamie Shaw. Dana, of course, is here with Sensible BC and as well as CAMCD. And Jamie Shaw, as always, British Columbia Cabash Club Society, CAMCD. And sorry, Dana also he wears so many hats. Dana also represents the Dispensary, which is 2 locations here in Vancouver that serve medical cannabis for patients. So welcome back to the show, both of you.
Okay, right on, thanks.
So one of the things that we came on, of course, to talk about is in one of my shows, of course, I made a big call out saying that any dispensaries that are restricting R versus Smith or conforming to some of this language is very concerning for myself, very concerning for the cannabis culture. So I want to get into this as we get further, but before I jump into that, just because some of us aren't, like I've been doing this since Allard, as you know, in 2012, so I've been kind of following these guys play. And we'll get into get into this as we go along. Let's just start off with how alert were you guys at this point to what happened at the legislative arm? Let's just start with Allard. Okay, there was a federal government on April Fool's Day, 2014. They tried to take our gardens and they implemented the licensed producer scheme under the Marijuana for Medical Purposes program or regulations if you have it. So at that time, what did we see or what did you think of this new federal regime, federal entity that I like to say is a monopoly?
I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. I was very happy about the Allard injunction, and as you know, I donated quite substantially to that and encouraged
Totally,
others to do so.
$10,000,
and that's
Mr.
something
Larsen.
that,
You're actually the top single donor. So, so I don't mean in respect to our fight.
Yeah, no, it was a great, and that was a huge victory. I absolutely support people's right. I think everybody should be able to grow their own cannabis at home, and certainly patients who need it should be able to. So I was happy to help contribute to that. I know it's going to be an ongoing case, and I think Kirk Tussaw's in court tomorrow on a slightly separate angle to even expand that. So there's lots of positive things happening there. So I think that was a good thing.
I should say more about the actual supply that was implemented on April Fool's. That was these now 25 licensed producer companies.
Right, yeah. Well, I don't mind those companies existing in that sense, but I don't like them being the only ones. And I feel some sympathy for the 300 other companies that have tried to get these permits and haven't even got an answer back from Health Canada about it. But it's a system created by a hostile bureaucracy that's purposely underfunded and under-organized and trying to starve it. So I feel some kind of sorry for a lot of those LPs. They're not making any money and they're not really selling much cannabis. The only ones who are making money out of the LPs are people selling stocks when they go public. And there's been millions made and I guess lost in that process. But yeah, I'm not.
I actually don't feel sorry for them at all mostly because we told them. Those of us that kind of stuck with CAMCD through all of these transitions told them that wasn't going to work, and we told them why it wasn't going to work, and they didn't really listen to us. And
there's some good people who have applied for those licenses, but none of them have gotten a permit yet. Of the people that I would consider sort of from the movement or who came up or who started out as a dispensary or a compassion club and then tried to get an LP license. So it's got to be very frustrating for those
Mr.
folks.
Lucas, and he'll come up in our discussion later, but of course, Mr. Lucas is one of my mentors, founder of the Vancouver Island Compassion Club Society and VP of Tilray, and as well as Miss Hillary Black, who's also working with Edrocan, who is now engulfed by Tweed. So these are two other key figures that work kind of with both sides of this that we can get into after. I mean, Hillary for a long time, as we know, has worked with Mr. Brett Zettel for Prairie Plant Systems Incorporated, and then Canistat. And
it's important to remember they were advisors in the process at the beginning, which was in 2010. That was a long time ago. That was before the MMPR had even been
without
announced.
Hillary, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? I mean, she was the one that started everything off, really, right? So that's
and Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Vancouver Dispensary Society. And
we came a little later, but absolutely, we opened things up a lot. But my feelings have been kind of hurt by some of the stuff I read on your website. Really, to be honest, like some of the claims and things that are coming out of there, I find quite personally hurtful or whatever, and I find it odd.
So what are they?
Things like saying, we're crony. Okay, I used to be an activist, now we're crony capitalists, and that I'm want to monopolize the cannabis dispensary industry in some ways if I possibly could, and that there's the appearance that we're working with Health Canada and with the LPs to institute some kind of LP weed scheme through dispensaries or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And I just find it odd. Like, I don't really get it, because I these kind of conspiracy type things are in our movement. We come up and people question each other.
Well, before we jump to the word conspiracy, let's first look at the language in the Section 56 exemption arising from R versus Smith, and also let's look at the fact that in Allard they proved no fire, mold, or organized crime. I'm going to say that was because they wanted the genetics and gardens for supply and distribution. They failed. Now, as we continue to look at this, R versus Smith arose, and that gave us a full, you're allowed to use cannabis in all of its forms, decision under the Constitution. Health Canada has come out with an exemption for licensed producers. Now, I want you to understand why this is ringing bells in people in the cannabis culture. The language in that exemption says cannabis oils in capsules in sealed containers. And now city bylaws say tinctures and tinctures and oils in capsules in sealed containers. So we see a lot of similar language, and having fought them once again for the past 2.5 years, of course we see these correlations and raises a lot of alarm bells.
See, I totally disagree with that interpretation entirely. They're very different. What Vancouver's done is banned foods, all foods from dispensaries, infused or otherwise, right? They've allowed everything else. What the federal government does is the exact opposite.
Where do you say that they allow everybody else? Because I have number 18 number 18 of the bylaw, which is
Every dispensary is still selling hash and extracts and
I don't
tinctures
care
and
what they're
oils.
doing. I'm telling you what it says.
It says foods.
Is it different? No, it doesn't. It says no person shall sell food on the business premises of a compassion except that it does not apply to the sales of tinctures, capsules, or edible oil in sealed containers.
Right.
That's not shatter. That's not hash.
No. You're misreading that interpretation. I believe that is written like that to clarify, because we were asking, well, is a capsule a food? Because maybe a capsule's a food, and they're clarifying there, no, capsules are not foods. That is written like that.
Have you changed your position, Dana?
That capsules are not foods.
As a community leader, Dana, I have to ask you. I mean, honestly, we go back a long way.
Well, first of all, you're misrepresenting though. People are still going to be selling shatter, and if they ask me to not sell those things, we will not comply. They're telling not to sell foods.
Not to sell edibles.
Not selling food. That's right. Food products. Yes.
Okay. So
yeah,
now
absolutely.
obviously,
and I don't think that's a violation. And first of all, anybody can do whatever they want at their dispensary. And there's 100 dispensaries, and no one in this city has done more to get those dispensaries going than I have, right? I mean, after we opened in my dispensary, I've helped so many people, spent hours on the phone. I still do. Tamarack Dispensary, and they spent hours on the phone with me. I constantly guide others at opening dispensaries. And if they want to sell foods or violate those things, they can go right ahead and take that risk or whatever. But honestly, I think it's a bad rule. I think we should be able to sell food products. But it's one thing to say, I don't want to have to smoke my medicine. I absolutely agree with that. We should have other options available. But to try to go and say, I demand a cookie instead of a capsule, that is not a politically valid, you're not going to win argument. The people who don't know about marijuana are regular people. They're not going to understand why you need a cookie and not a capsule. And while I think we should be able to have cookies, if I can still sell capsules and still sell shatter and extracts and all those other things, all I have to do is take cookies and brownies off. That to me is a victory, that we've won the right for everything, and we'll still fight for that. And maybe next year we'll get food.
What if I was to suggest that that's just strike one, that striking the edibles is strike one. Strike two is going to be compliance. Okay, well now you got start one phase one.
You're speculating about the future.
I know. I'm going to go on record.
But
this is a live show where I'm going on record because I believe enough in what I've tracked with the monopoly and with what they're doing, that I believe they're going to box up the clubs in Vancouver. They have a plan for maybe 25 clubs, and I'm happy for my friends that get that entrepreneurship. But my friend
hopefully
Dana,
more like 50 or more. But Vancouver's a small spot in Canada.
Is a community leader
Right.
with Sensible BC like myself. You have a large voice in the community and with the medical community, and that's why I'm asking you for clarity around your understanding of the monopoly in Canada that was in April 1st.
I recommend that clubs
and their associations
try to comply with the rules as much as they can. I think some clubs are going to get shut down. That's unfortunate. Although at the same time, not every club is awesome. There's all kinds of. I don't think anybody should go to jail for selling marijuana. Doesn't mean I think every single person who wants to sell like does anything else. There should be quality standards and regulations. I think Vancouver should have a lot more clubs than there are now. Ultimately, it could have as many as any other coffee shops or anything, right? But this is the first regulations in the first place. This is not Canada-wide. There's many other cities. I'm understanding, hopefully in Victoria, they're talking with City Council, and it looks like Victoria is not going to ban edibles. I sure hope they don't. They haven't banned them anywhere else. Vancouver is the only city to do that. And I think that was kind of a political decision more than anything else. I think they look at 420 and people getting high, and they're trying to deal with stuff. I know that the staff at the city have different opinions. But I don't really think it's a big conspiracy thing. If Harper announced tomorrow, we're going to follow the Vancouver model, we're going to allow all these things, we're just not going to allow baked goods, would we be like, oh, why aren't you allowing us to have cookies? Or would we be like, hey, we won a huge victory, let's fight for the cookies, but come on, it's a big success.
Well, and that's not even what Vancouver did, though. They said dispensaries can't sell them. That's what they said. They didn't ban them. They didn't.
And there's a lot of other things around foods too that are hard, because foods are supposed to be cooked in a food-safe way and in the proper kitchen, and those rules are very difficult to put together.
Infusing oil is any different than making marijuana. Infusing oil is any different than making food. Come on, guys. Let's talk real science.
In a way, it depends, because other things can go. It's a little different.
Infusion.
Making butter.
Come on, guys. Infusion's infusion.
That was also an exception that they made.
I don't mean with dangers of cannabis in the food. I mean just making food, like getting hair in it, making it in a safe place, making sure. Almost all the cannabis food out there is made in people's homes. And bless them, that's a wonderful thing. It really, if you're selling a food product, it really should be made in a safe way. We need to integrate those things together. Right now, you go to a mainstream place, I want to make my food here, it's going to have marijuana in it, don't worry. Their lawyer says the place is going to get seized, so they can't have it. I just feel like I'm best serving my patients by not fighting a battle that I'm going to lose. We're going to lose against the city. We're going to lose against the court of public opinion as well. People are going to go, They're fighting to have cookies when they're allowed to have capsules and everything else. Like, why are they fighting this?
Why are we conceding to an unconstitutional policy?
I don't really know if it is unconstitutional. I think that's a real question. The Supreme Court did not say you have a right to cookies and you have a right to everything.
No, I'm talking about the city. Hold on. Let me clarify. Let me clarify. The city of Vancouver overreached its constitutional powers by arbitrarily restricting a controlled drug being edibles.
No,
they cannot
banned
food
sales. That's why they did it in that particular way, because they didn't want to have that issue.
From dispensaries.
So they said, we can't regulate what you're selling. We're not going to control what you're selling at all. All we're doing is we're banning food, whether it's infused or not. And that was their way of getting around that, because they can't say you can't sell shatter, your marijuana's got to be this, tested, it's got to be. I kind of wish they could say you've got to sell mold-free marijuana, and we're going to have a blind shopper person come around and buy some of your stuff and test it and make sure it's good quality. Something like that would actually probably be a good idea in a way, but they can't do any of that. So all they're doing is saying you can't sell food. And that's why those regulations say all that stuff. If you think that interpretation is incorrect, I would love to see a legal opinion on that, because everything I've heard from city people, from talking to councillors myself, from talking to other dispensaries, we are allowed to sell everything except for food. And that all that bylaw says in that definition there is to make sure that we're clear that capsules and tinctures and extracts are not food. It's not an exclusive list. That's just helping understand they mean food, not capsules, not tinctures, not drops. And they'd have nothing to say about extracts and shatter. And at the meetings with the city, they said that too. So that's my interpretation. If they come and tell us we can't sell those products, I would fight that. I would not take hash or tinctures or extracts off the shelf.
The city came out before R versus Smith was decided by Health Canada to give an exemption. Again, they haven't legislated.
No, I don't think there's any real connection.
But the city gave the same language to have these sealed containers, and we have you on the show, Dana.
Do we not want to have sealed containers?
No, but what I'm saying is
that
language.
A bad thing? Like, why they should be childproof, really, like other stuff, right? I mean, it's not going to kill anybody, but it should be in a childproof container. It's not going
to kill anybody, but it should be childproof.
Because it's still going to make people high and unpleasant. It's not, people don't want to be, like, it can be dangerous. And somebody who gets really high off cannabis and doesn't intend to, they're not going to die from an overdose, but they may think they might freak out, they might run into traffic, they might, especially if you're not used to it, a large dose of psychoactive cannabis can be very frightening to people and quite unpleasant. I don't see any problem with having it. And if you're selling foods, they should especially be in a childproof container, because kids might see a cookie and want to eat it, and I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be. Like, these are for adults, right?
So you don't think a kid might see a pill full of oil and want to take that like they would the other pills in the cupboard? Especially when it says cannabis.
I think less so. I think there's a much lesser chance, realistically, of a child eating a cookie, or greater chance of them eating a cookie that's left on the table. And that's happened to people that we know. It's not like we haven't got friends who've accidentally eaten a brownie. It's happened to everybody, right? Like, and if you're an experienced pot user, you go, well, whatever. But and come on, we're the first city putting in the first rules. Of course they're going to be too restrictive. The biggest rule that I'm worried about is the one that's going to shut most of the places down, the 300-meter rule. That is the killer. If we can stay open, you can fight for other stuff. You can fight for edibles. If that 300 rule, that's the 300-meter rule is going to shut down a lot of places. That, to me, is the key of everything. That's the one we should be fighting against. And that's really, I think, the important one. But that's nobody's really talking about that so much. Everyone's worried about their cookies and brownies, and I think that seems
it's also extremely important.
I'm trying to say we're just worried about me anyway. I'm not just worried about cookies and brownies.
Jason, it's extremely important to also remember that what they've actually done is said that they're not going to take on the question of regulating edibles. Look at legalized places; they're still questioning this and dealing with this, and they've got all the resources of a state government behind them with all of the businesses.
Let's drop edibles and let's look at shatter. The federal government of Canada, in its exemption,
we're hoping in 3 months for an election that'll make all of this discussion
Justin Trudeau will
completely
save the world and the kids. I know, but I'm not big on politics. You guys know this. What I'm big on is facts, and this monopoly has been set up with the legislative arm. And people like our friend Mr. Lucas has been working with these companies when there's no medical value to marijuana. My only concern is that the cannabis culture seems to be getting torn apart, and people don't know. That's what we're here to talk about.
But it's your stuff that's tearing it apart, though, right? You're the one putting out these things, attacking people in this kind of way. There's conspiracies been everywhere. People say, "Oh, Jason Wilcox stole all the money that was donated." I hear that from people all the time. I tell them, of course, that's ridiculous. That's not true. Why are you saying that? But people don't know you, and they know that they hear a bunch of money, and they think, "Oh, he's stealing money or whatever." And
again, what I said was Dana Larsen banned edibles, and you did, sir.
Yeah, I did.
That's
Absolutely.
what I said?
No.
Nothing more, nothing less.
No, I didn't ban edibles. I've stopped selling edibles at my store.
Whatever you want to call it.
Right, yeah.
And as a community leader, I took exception to that. So let's keep the facts clear.
No, but you're also, there's a subtext that we're some kind of wanting to, like, crony capitalism, and that we're
That's
trying
not
to...
my language, that's one of our staff writers.
It's on your website, it's on your stuff.
It's a staff writer.
Caleb.
We're a company here, we're not just
and
me.
you're printing articles where he, like, mentions me by name 8 times and puts it, but doesn't give me a call to get a quote. Like, that's, like, you don't have to, he doesn't agree
well,
with me.
You're here now, okay, so you're here now to get quotes.
It's not quite the same thing, though, as
You're here, that's why I
online.
bring you on the show again. You guys know for 7 years, I ran the show straight, I keep it on facts, this is your chance to speak. If they come in and the city says,
Well, actually,
let's
if this
just
is my
say,
chance to speak, just
if
let
the
me
city,
actually
if the
say,
city, if the
when,
city,
no, sorry, Jason, actually, I'm going to say something
it.
here. When the MMPR was first announced, what was the state of the cannabis industry in Canada? What was the state of shatter manufacturers and edible manufacturers, and how many dispensaries were there? And look at what it's like now. There was only a few of us saying that's what's going to happen regardless of the MMPR. And a bunch of people disagreed and thought the MMPR was going to go the other way. So it's actually, I think, one of the things that gets to Dana also gets to me, because I've put a lot of my free time into CAMCD and growing CAMCD and lobbying with the city, with the provinces, with the federal government to get some sort of regulations that protect community-based distribution and the patients that are being served by them. And so if you look at the propaganda of the government and what's happening to the industry, and then look at the reality of the industry, frankly, there should be an entire edible production industry that's different. Dispensaries can't keep doing everything. We can't keep making all of the shatters, making all of the edibles, fighting for the rights for each ones of those things. I mean, obviously they're all important to us and we're going to, but the 4 or 5 oldest dispensaries in Canada have been like carrying this burden for a very, very long time.
and then nobody's taking anything away from that. Again, you guys
Well,
have
and most
blazed the
dispensaries
trail.
do nothing and don't care, don't
One of the
contribute, don't
articles
show up at
actually
City
asked
Hall,
what
don't
kind
donate.
of value do you get of membership from CAMCD, and frankly, the environment we have right now. It's been the behavior of those oldest dispensaries in Canada that has allowed this to happen, and that's following certain standards that you would expect out of a restaurant.
Oh, I understand.
If you're going to go buy food, it should be food safe. The people serving it to you should have food safe. You want infection control. You want quality control. If you're giving them personal records, you want to make sure they're not going to sell them, right? So these are like basic things, and they are on our website. They have been for a very long time, so anybody can go and see what those are. But those are the only consumer protections written into the Vancouver bylaws. The other class of license says nothing about product in any way, shape, or form. Serve somebody over 19. That's pretty much all it says. And the CAMCD trade membership as a requirement in the other class of license is the only kind of consumer protection that they have actually built into those regulations. So I think it's kind of hard. I was also taking it a little personally because a lot of these articles were attacking Dana, but they were also attacking my work in CAMCD. And we worked really hard to actually get the first government in Canada at any level to actually take a stand and regulate dispensaries despite what the federal government is saying. And that's a huge win. And while we're having that, people are mad at them instead of focused on the federal government that could solve all of these issues with a snap of their fingers.
What does CAMCD say to Mr. Aaron Bott and Macros in Edmonton, 10-year club, 1-year founding members? What do you say to them? I know you had a meeting.
He's not a founding member. No, he's not a founding member.
I like Aaron. I sent him $500 as soon as he got rated.
I
want to raise
know
more money for him. I think
saying
he's a great guy.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't think he's actually officially a member of our group. He didn't get trade certification or go through the process.
I'm sorry, that's what I was informed.
But even if he was, like, it wouldn't really.
He's been interested in it.
Yeah, I support what he's doing. There's no conflict. I think he's a hero. I'm sad he got raided. I think it's that Pamela McCall that got him in trouble. It sounds like, but I mean, even if he was a member of CAMCD, what would that? Like, what are we supposed to do, or what would you?
Well, that's what the question is.
Well,
what will you do?
Phoenix,
what will you do as
Parksville,
your clubs continue to get hit that by your trade membership? And again, what do you guys feel it doesn't set you in a position?
What would you want us to do? What do you think? Considering we have no money, and when we ask groups to donate, like we get crashed for asking too much for members to donate. So we're all funded, mostly me and a few other people, to put in a lot of our own money to get this organization going. So I personally donated to Macros, and I try to help out other clubs. And when they have problems, they call me, and I talk to them, and I do what I can. I can't donate to everybody. I got limits to what I can donate to and stuff, but I try to help out. But CAMCD is not sitting on some fortune that we can got lawyers and cash or whatever. So no, CAMCD can't really offer a lot to a dispensary that's been raided. other than we'll testify in court, we'll speak for them, we'll help them do their media stuff, we'll, as individuals, we'll send them money. We have, you know, we'll try to do what we can. But our group isn't really designed to be like a group that rescues dispensaries that get raided. Like, that's just not, we want to help them, but our group is more about creating a set of standards that we can all work towards, and having a knowledge that if somebody's got our logo, that they're meeting a certain set of fixed standards. That's what CAMCD is about, certifying and helping, working in that way, you know, and and making sure that, yeah, there's a certain protocols are in place and a certain standard is in place. But if someone gets raided, we help them as we can, but so we don't have like the big fund that we give out, because we're barely scraping by as an organization.
We're funding
and considering there's
else,
100 dispensaries in the city, they just gave each like $10 a day. That'd be $1,000 a day, 30 grand a month our movement can have. But the vast majority of dispensaries give nothing. I don't think they should get raided. I don't think you have to be like a donator to be able to sell marijuana to people. But let's be real. Most of the dispensaries out there do dick all for the legalization movement. They didn't show up at City Hall. They don't put out sensible BC flyers. They don't donate money. There's a minority, of which CAMCD members are a disproportionate amount, but not only, that actually help out and do stuff, that have donated to your cause. I mean, of the 100 dispensaries in the city, I doubt more than, you could correct me on this, I doubt more than 10 at the most maybe have kicked that one. I don't know, but I doubt it's a majority of them, right?
BC almost
so you know, I stand for
single-handedly
people's rights to do that,
edibles.
but I want people to stand for themselves too, right? Like, if they want to get mad at me for not selling edibles, well then you go and sell edibles, and you take that risk. And if you get raided, I'll be at the rally to support you and to say that you should do it.
So much about just
but I don't think other,
I think you're taking the banning of
edibles
edibles too much on just that topic. I'd say let's look forward, and let's forward.
I also think
let's forward talk here just to this fall. I mean, even to next year. If they come in and you serve you a letter and say you can no longer sell shot or anything else in accordance with the bylaws,
I would defy that.
You will do, that's official on record.
I wouldn't go along
with
that, yeah.
See, that's going to help mend some of the confusion, because
like
the fear is, Dana, that Mr. Lucas, who's one of our old friends and very well entrenched in our community, would very much want to monopolize for Tilray and the LPs the dispensing aspect. The word compliance.
I would never sell. The only way I would sell LP weed is if the majority of my current suppliers could easily become LPs. Like, I have no problem with just there being some kind of process for our suppliers to also be licensed and regulated in a fair way, and not too much, and not all the rules that we've got. But I would think that would be good. I think patients should want that. What other medicine do people sell that isn't checked by somebody that could have mold?
I'm with you on this. Again,
so
that's
I would
good
support
to hear.
all that. But I'm not selling Tilray weed, nor do I think is that realistic. Like, they don't have enough to even supply one dispensary. They're struggling. No, this is not going to happen.
I know. They're struggling, but my concern is again that word compliance and the ability that they are, as of April Fools, the only legal supply aside from patients' personal supply.
Yeah, but it's always been like that. I mean,
but what hasn't always been like this is city regulations and banning of edibles. And next up, and I believe I'm going to call this, they're going to ban the shatters and they're going to ban the other stuff, and it's only going to be these edibles in containers. My biggest fear, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. My biggest fear is that the end game is going to be that LPs want to sell cannabis through our dispensaries, boxed up like they have in St. Catharines.
They don't want to have to take on all
but
the
they like to
patient
steal
care
all our
that we
clients. But
normally
that's
do,
not going
right?
to happen. We're not going to let that happen. And most I don't think any dispensary wants to do that. I certainly don't. And I just don't want to sell. They don't have the stuff. Even if they had, it's just not what I'm interested in doing, and I don't think anyone in our dispensary feels that they would want to do that, or that's how it's going. I see these two paths. Like, I wish they would have a proper system where anybody who wanted to grow cannabis legally could get a license for $100 or $500, and that includes an inspection every 6 months where a guy comes by and checks your stuff and makes sure I don't know, something like that. That to me seems like a reasonable, fair system, right?
Well, again,
and ultimately, I think marijuana should be grown by farmers outdoors by the thousands of hectares, and that we should really be focusing on extracts made in a very large scale. That ultimately is, and people should be able to grow their own cannabis if they want. But I think, but that's like a long time away. But that's really what I think. I don't think people should be. Marijuana really shouldn't be grown in basements and stuff. It's kind of because those are prohibitionist models, right? You wouldn't grow it in basements.
It's actually not that far away now in some of the states, like Colorado.
And our hemp farmers are producing so much CBD that they're just throwing away right now, and like that to me is really the future. But I didn't even get this I didn't even get in this movement to sell marijuana. Like, I spent 10 years working on marijuana, Cannabis Culture magazine, and doing marijuana party stuff. I opened the Vancouver Seed Bank because Mark couldn't sell seeds anymore, and I thought, well, that was a good thing, and maybe we could make some money off the movement. And I opened my dispensary because there was 2 other dispensaries in the city, and I thought, they've been open a long time. I could probably do this too, but I want to do it more openly, just like what's happening in Toronto, because people get established and you reach a certain comfort level, and they weren't opening more. And the only complaint I've ever had against the BC Compassion Society, why is there only one after all these years? They should have opened a lot more places.
Well, I can actually
so,
tell
you know,
why. We looked at opening more locations, and we were told by the police at that time, when we were the only one in town, if we opened another location, they would bust it. And so we just went, okay, and then watched the number of dispensaries grow to 100.
But it took a long time, right? Yes. I mean, it was many years. And I didn't know if we were going to get raided or not when we opened, but I mean, yeah, just the idea that we want. I'm trying to. Like, the reason I didn't seek to like open every dispensary. People often wanted me on their boards and offered me things, and I turned them down. I would say, no, you guys do it. You don't need me on your board. Because if I'm the person who's in every dispensary, then it looks like I'm trying to do something. And then also, if they bust me, maybe they all go down. I don't want that. I wanted a vibrant industry of independently owned dispensaries. I would just tell them, please kick down to the movement when you get going. And a lot of them don't even do that now after I help them out. But some of them do, and that's good. But I really wanted there to be lots of independent dispensaries. My model, like I say, the wine model is what I want to see, you know. And there's room for big suppliers. There's room for big people. I have no problem if you want to grow 1 million acres of marijuana or whatever. But there's also room for small suppliers. And the wine industry is like that. I'm always consistent in that model. You should be able to grow your own with no limits. But to start with, there'll be some limit, you know, whatever, 10 plants, 10 square feet.
Again, my only concern, and I just want this to be clear, I'm glad you went on the record, Dana, here on Cannabis in Canada. Again, to our viewers, this matters a lot to anybody who want public perception, who have questions about Dana. He's went officially on record. It's on video. It's live here on his position. So that can't be understated. Again, that's why I bring people on the show. This is why when we say, well, there's this language, and I'm hoping that you guys understand as well, when you look at this, there's a sole proprietor trade membership that stuck out to a lot of people with CAMCD.
A lot of these rules are terrible rules, right? Like, I don't like the rule. There's a bunch of ridiculous stuff, and you were right. They are vaguely written where there is possible room for interpretation that sometimes they tell us, oh, it's going to be cool like this, but then they're really going to interpret it like that. And there's a ton of vagueness in there. Like when I was at the meeting, I asked about the Vancouver Seed Bank. They got a letter saying you're a dispensary too. They sell marijuana seeds. So I got up and I said, well, does that count? She said, well, it depends how they're operating. I said, well, it depends on what? Well, it just depends. And that was the answer I got. So it's like, well, what the hell does that mean? That's how are you supposed to function when you don't know what the rules are? And there's a lot of stuff in there. But I really think you're wrong about that the current rules are banning anything other than food products. Like I read you what the actual language is, and I really think that's like I know a dispensary that I recommend dispensaries take out your food products if you want to stay open, at least for now.
And also understand, Dana, that when I say this, that the Section 56 exemption allowed LPs to sell the exact same thing, oil in capsules in sealed containers, to the public. Now this is again arising from R.V. Smith, and also in that patients were banned from making any extracts, from making any sort of shatters or anything. So again, the federal government, again, this is CDSA Section 56 exemption, therefore not enforceable. However, it's an implication of what they'd like to do and try and restrict R versus Smith. This is why it has trickled down to our culture and why we as community leaders need to have this dialogue and need to make sure we're clear so the people out there are saying, what's going on? Because they hear the stuff from Tilray, they hear stuff from, in my own opinion, agents. You know, not just Tilray. I'm not outing just one LP. I'm outing the model. I believe that it is a wrong model for Canada. It is a monopoly, and I just don't want to see the cannabis culture torn apart. I don't mind. I have room for big business. I agree. Patient option. Big business. Nobody
supports the LP model.
No, big business. No, but if you live in Timbuk nowhere and you can't grow and you can't get it to a dispensary, you have to order from Big LP or you can't order from Dana's mail system. Then whatever. That's it. That's the way it is. So you have to order from an LP. That's patient option. But for them to say the sole proprietor is LP, my biggest fear was that if that came like it is in St. Catharines to the ground, walk in, sign up with a doctor.
See, I see it all differently. I see what I see happening is that the dispensaries are opening faster than they can stop them. Yeah. People are opening in cities all across the country. Yeah, some of them are getting hit, but more opening, and people aren't being made afraid by getting hit because the penalties, aside from losing all your cannabis and your money and your investment, but nobody's really going to jail for selling medical marijuana in Canada. So if you're someone who believes in it and you don't mind or are willing to risk some of the cash investment, people are willing to do it, and so they're opening faster and faster. I think that's good because we don't want a legal model where it's just LPs and they lock it all down. We want a vibrant, individually owned, communal thing across the country, and that's what dispensaries are. And you know, in Vancouver, this is not about medical marijuana. This is about selling marijuana to adults for everybody. Like, maybe the Compassion Club ones under the CAMCD model, but that's going to be a minority. And so it's really legalization happening, or at least the beginning of that, under Harper, like under the most progressive anti-marijuana prime minister we've had for a long time. We're seeing legalization happen anyways because of civil disobedience and activists and people who have laid the seeds for all this to blossom over 20 years of hard work to create this environment. And now it's spreading across Canada. And we're going to defeat Harper in the fall. I know you said you don't like politics, but whether it's Trudeau or whether it's Mulcair, they're both they're not going to do it all for us. We're not going to elect a new government and then go, oh, okay, Trudeau's going to do it, okay, Mulcair. No, but they're going to be more able to work with them. They're going to be more reasonable. They're not going to always go to the Supreme Court to stop us from having a brownie or whatever. They're not going to, they're going to put something in. Yeah, it's going to be a stupid system with a bunch of bad rules and overly restrictive stuff that is better for their friends and for other people. But it's still in the right direction, and we will continue to fight against that.
In a free and fair market, we can all agree here that that is what we want for not only BC, but for Canada. And all I'm saying is what I don't want to see, and I'm going on record too, saying the only thing I don't want to see is our dispensaries forced to sell LP word with a strike of the word compliance. And after you invest $250,000 into your location, and then they come along and they say, well, we learn medical patients can't supply
I don't care about money at all. We give away all the money to make our dispensary anyways. I mean, I have the stuff I
have to put these
savings.
questions to
I don't have
you.
any money. My credit card's all maxed out. Like I have this, I don't live a poor life. I eat well. I have the things I want. Everything after that goes to legalization, right? I pour tons of money into Sensible BC. It took me quite a while to earn that money, and that's not just. I mean, we do that all the time, right? Like I wish I could give more, and I'm probably going to send more to Macros. I don't know, didn't know what he needed, so I just sent him a little bit right away. But that's what we do with our stuff, right? And I really learned that from Mark Emery model of doing business and his thing with the seeds. And you saw the same thing, that he built the seed industry, then people started attacking him for being a bad guy and doing this and that and wanting to monopolize it all for himself. But he really just gave away $4 million, and I haven't given away that much. But give me another few years, and maybe we'll be getting up there and something like that. But yeah, I don't know. To me, just the idea, because I know my own history myself, so I understand that where I'm coming from. But I also know that I'm kind of famous, and I'm the face of the marijuana movement in a lot of ways, and I get in the news a lot. And that's not easy, by the way, being on TV and stuff. Like, you got to be on, you have to look good, you can't say anything stupid. I did a show the other day. They wanted me to talk about the school that was offering their marijuana course. So I drive 30 minutes to the studio, do the interview, drive back home, and then I get home and they say, oh, the sound wasn't working. Can you do it tonight on Skype instead? So it spent me like an hour and a half to 2 hours. You don't get paid anything for that. I just do it because I think I can articulate
Would you say
what our
that the LP
movement needs,
monopoly is a capitalist crony system?
I think the LPs are all screwed and they're all going to go bankrupt or have problems. Most of them are dying anyways. I think they're having trouble. I think the money's being made in stocks and in the potential for the future, but unless there's a big change in the rules for them coming in the fall. And I think they should be able to do well, but not at the expense of dispensaries and grassroots stuff. And their pot's too expensive. They should be grown in a different way. A lot of these rules are designed to make them fail and stuff, but... So I don't do feel kind of sorry for them, but they don't feel sorry for us, right? I mean, I feel sorry for my friends who went in good interest and applied to be LPs and haven't got a thing. But I don't feel sorry for them when they're saying, like, dispensaries are our enemies and they're stealing our clients. Without us, they wouldn't exist. Without the groundwork we did and the tension we created, they wouldn't exist. And without cases like the edible case, the Smith case, that benefited the LPs. It didn't actually benefit. It doesn't make me selling edibles any more legal than it was before because we're already illegal anyway. It totally benefited the LPs, but did they give $1? No. We put in like $5,000 in that case, but the real people who put in over $100,000 was the Vancouver Island Compassion. Buyers Club. I'm getting mixed up. Cannabis Buyers Club. That's why I'm looking at you. I was going to get that wrong. Ted Smith's old club, right? Exactly. They put in like $100,000 to that case because they're heroes, right? And so LPs owe us a debt of gratitude for the work that we've done. And
frankly, we've backed court cases for our growers, for our members, for ourselves at times.
Dispensaries are the first wave, or you said the Mark's thing was like start selling the influence of the culture, making that money, selling seeds, bombs, and pipes, and putting that money in legalization. The best dispensaries follow that model with what we do as well.
You recently appeared on stage with Mr. Lucas, the Vice President of Tilray, and Mr. Emery and others I can't remember the title of the conference, but you were speaking on stage there. Do you know which?
Lucas?
Yeah, Mr. Lucas.
I don't think I
was
did
it
that
yourself?
recently.
I think Dory was on stage and Mr. Emery was on stage.
Oh, there was the panels. The thing there. I wasn't on the same panel with him, but there was a bunch of panels.
Oh, you're on a different panel. Oh, sorry.
I don't think I was in the same panel. No, it was me and Mark and Jody And now I'm feeling bad. So anyways, whatever. I'm on a lot of panels.
Okay.
But no, that was I don't know. I'll go speak. If people want me to come speak, I'll go speak. I mean, I wouldn't not appear on stage. I like Phil. I think he's a good guy. I feel a lot of them. I mean, he's the hero that really got things going in Victoria. But I don't really know what's going on with him and Tilray. I don't really speculate on that stuff. But he may be regretting being involved in that LP. I don't know. But I think there's nothing wrong with trying to work within the system to do a positive thing. There's nothing wrong with wanting to work with LPs or to try to make an LP that does positive stuff. I think that's fine. I think they're going to be disappointed because it's very hard to do that under the current rules, and it's going to be kind of naive to think you're going to be able to run an LP
hold on,
in a
I
good
would
way,
agree with
but
you that it's
I
okay
don't
if you
always
want to do
know,
that. Like
you
Mr.
know.
Lucas did the right thing. He's my mentor, and Phil knows that I respect him dearly. He left the community, he left the culture, as you know, friends of ours. He left our listservs, and he went off, and he came back as a VP at Tilray. That's a lot different than if this monopoly, this same agenda as Mr. Lucas would like to see, was to come in and try to box up our clubs and have that license
Phil
producer
Lucas
cannabis.
really wants to have a monopoly on marijuana stuff? And that's where. So I haven't talked to Phil for a while, but I'd be surprised about that. I don't see. And him, I mean, he wants Tilray to do well. It's his company or whatever, but they really. I don't know. Maybe he does. Man. I don't know.
$25 million company.
The Phil I know and most people I know are like didn't really get in this to make a lot of money. Most people who were opening dispensaries at that time, maybe it's changed. I don't know. I said, but the Phil that I know is a guy who like selflessly put his freedom and himself on the line to get the Vancouver Island Compassion Society going, and who I like to think, anyways, got involved with Tilray because he wants to run an LP that's cool, and he wants to try to work within the system to make it better. And it's probably very frustrating, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, that's what I like to think anyway.
That's where
but
he
I tend
did
to
it.
think the best of people.
He did it in a way, again, I'm not knocking Phil, he did it in a way that I thought was respectful, because again, he's not, when you're a community leader in the cannabis culture and people look to us for answers, it's like people are looking to me for answers, and I can't explain it when I look at the city regs. I hear about the boxing up, I hear Tilray talk about the fact that they were working, the LIFT conference talk about the fact they were working with the city for 3 months in advance. You remember I had both of you on my show and asked if you had any prior stakeholder advisory of these new regulations that were just coming into force. And here's the LPs already having 3 months work with the city. That's why the language coming out really rung my bell. You know, when I went to that LIFT conference, and again, this was talked about. And that's...
I really think they're just different. Like the Vancouver are banning food. The Health Canada is doing what they've always done, which is put the most minimalist interpretation of the court decision they can to try to meet what it says, or at least come close to it. I mean, the court really, like we're saying, really the court intended a much broader range of products than just edible oil in a really low THC concentration, right? I mean, I think the spirit of that decision, if Health Canada was going in this good faith, first of all, they wouldn't have gone to the Supreme Court to fight all this stuff anyways, but I think the spirit of that decision is that more options should be allowed, or that there should be more extracts and tinctures, and that just having only smokable buds is a problem.
I would say it's a constitutional right
Yeah.
now for myself to have cannabis in all of its forms, and my providers to
But
give
not
it
for
to me.
dispensaries to have to sell it.
Well, you're a provider of mine. I
also
believe
think
that's an
that-
arguable
But
point.
I also think that Health Canada's always done that, right? We're going to have to go back. They've never taken the right
This is
interpretation.
true.
They always do
This
the
is true.
absolute... That's why marijuana was legal for 6 months in 2003, right? Because they totally just didn't follow through on stuff. So, but that's... I don't think Vancouver City Council gives a fuck what Health Canada says. I think they hate Rona Ambrose. They laugh at her. They think she's a stupid, ignorant person. And then I think they put in these rules because they're trying to find the solution to what their polling and their issues kind of show as a thing, right? And the poll that came out, I don't know who did it, but I saw a poll anyways that showed like 95% support in Vancouver for all the regs, except for the edibles, which was like 55% support, but it was 50-50 on that one, right? Although I think that a lot of people think maybe you're interpreting that all things are banned. And if you told these people, well, it's just cookies and brownies that are banned, but you're allowed to, I think those numbers would probably shift.
Again,
right?
I'm reading what Health Canada
That's a
has in
political-
the section
You also need
56.
to understand
Again,
that,
no, we have to read the
if
actual
they allow
language.
edibles for sale,
I hope you're wrong,
they have
man.
to
I really
actually-
do, and I think you are. Like, I hope you're wrong about that, though. I don't think that's where it's going. That's not my interpretation of any other, like, I don't know what John Conroy or those guys say, but I would talk to them and get a statement on that. But I don't.
Why
that
would
just
the
seems wrong
city
to
of
me.
Vancouver
The
take
city of
on the
Vancouver doesn't care.
giant
Yeah,
problem
they
of
don't care.
regulating edibles in terms
They just
of
wanted to ban.
dosaging,
Yeah,
in terms
they just wanted to
of
ban
content,
edibles
packaging?
because it's way
It's not
easier
their
for them
job.
to do that.
It's exactly why.
And it helps deal with the issue of kids eating edibles, which we
Yeah.
know isn't a real thing, but a lot of people are worried about that stuff. And politics is perception, and they have to deal with the people that have those concerns. And it sucks if you're a cookie maker, although you're still going to be able to sell a ton of cookies like you used to. You just can't.
Exactly.
But make capsules instead, man. You'll be able to get a capsule making machine and make a lot of capsules, and you can keep if you're making good. In fact, it's easier to make capsules than cookies in a way, right? And so, I would tell those people try to adapt with what's going on, or go to Toronto and sell cookies there, because as the whole rest of the country is still wide open, and hopefully more cities will maybe do what Victoria's going to do and not ban edibles. Or put on, but I bet there's going to be all kinds of rules.
Well,
Some of them may be more restrictive,
if more
and some of them
community
might be.
leaders and more people that own dispensaries like yourselves stand up and go on the record and say, you know what, I'm not going to sell LP cannabis. That's going to help the movement understand how we want it more.
I'm never going to sell LP cannabis. I said unless my current suppliers could easily become LPs, in which case that would actually be a good system. Although probably it shouldn't be the federal government; it should be the provincial and municipal. But if if it worked and like there was 100,000 LPs across Canada, then yeah, of course I'd sell LP weed. But if I got to sell Tilray, like of these 2 companies or whatever, like no, we're never going to sell that under the current model of how it is. We're never going to do that. Like that's not what I'm into. That would be losing the whole point of why we're doing all this stuff in the first place. Like that's totally not what I'm into. I'd rather shut down if I had to than do that in a way, right? Like, and to me, like if the LPs, I don't know, you got to be able to grow your own. To me, that's the key. If everybody can grow their own, that keeps everything else in check. Because if legal cannabis is too expensive, well, you just start growing your own, and that keeps the price down. And so I really think that's the key. One of the reasons why I support the Allard thing so much, even though it's only for patients and only for a limited number, to me that's a template for legalization. That there's got to be some. I think everyone should be able to grow their own cannabis, but I also think that the most people should not have to bother, because legal marijuana should be cheap and plentiful and high quality, and why would you grow your own when you can get it for $1 a gram or whatever? Like, so that's the model that I would like to see when I worked for, but I don't even really like. I'd rather just write books and write stories and do other stuff. Even running dispensaries, like I didn't think, I'm going to run dispensaries. Like I do it because it needs to be done. And because we're helping people, and because I wanted to set a model for that. Now I'm thinking, like, what other, like, dispensaries are kind of done out in a way, right? Like, I'm still trying to open new things and go to other cities. I'm not, but to me, my passion is, like, finding the things that no one else is doing and moving forward on that stuff and pushing forward. And so,
what's your take on the government making shatter clandestine meth labs? And
that's been ongoing.
Even the
for
term
so
grow op.
No, this
is a police term that we should really stop using. It's like their slanderous term grow op.
We say gardens.
I like to say gardens. I use grow op because that's what people know, but I try to say gardens more because I think that's a better term, and I think they call them marijuana labs and stuff. But then at the same time, making your own extracts at home can be dangerous, and there's no question that there's some stupid people who blow themselves up making this stuff, or maybe not always stupid, maybe very careful and just made one little mistake, right? But I think those things should be available and that, but we don't really carry like the butane extracts in my dispensaries. I use them sometimes, and I don't have anything against those who use them, but it's a product that I really think should be made in a more safe kind of way, right? Like so it's a challenge. Growing marijuana can be dangerous too, but not in the same way. Like a lot of the simple people burning down their houses and all that, a lot of that's bullshit. Because I don't know any marijuana growers that have done that, but I do know people, and we see it happening, that are blowing themselves up making butane extracts, and that is a real problem, I think, for our movement, because that's not good. We don't want people hurt themselves, and and it makes us look bad politically, and so I don't want to ban those things, but I think in a legal model, like things that involve solvents and extracts, they should be made in a lab or something, right? If you want to make your own, making bubble hash, just make your own bubble hash. That's great. You can get a really pure product. If you make a mistake, you spill some water, but that's more like, that's to me not, you shouldn't be able to make your own marijuana extracts. The rule is more, you shouldn't be able to do things that are going to blow up your house. And if one of those is making marijuana extracts a certain way, then maybe try to make it a different way.
Well, this is, again, like the judge said to the Crown in Allard, that it's one thing to assert that there's inherent harm, and this even with edibles, but back to inherent harm, if you buy a chainsaw and from Canadian Tire go home and cut overhead and it cuts back and splits your skull open, it's because you didn't read the manual. Right. So it's these basic inherent harms, and it's one thing to say that they're there, it's another thing to prove them. And right now, I'm hearing all this stuff about edibles, and I don't know if you've noticed lately, but they're actually looking to do infused gum to start selling. I can't remember a company in the U.S. there.
Oh, well, they got
the
like
stuff
they
they're
got
doing in the
strips. I
US
mean,
is
they got
crazy.
those
Infused gum, yeah, but
flavor
then
strips.
do you
that
guys
just
not
take
see
and
the
you just
hypocrisy,
hide.
going on
right?
down there is
And that's
out of
good. We should
hand.
have those
Yeah,
things. And
absolutely.
Well, I agree. We should. I'm just saying, don't you see the hypocrisy that we're banning this stuff to save the kids here while we're okaying gum? You know, because it's the bigger companies.
I don't know
That's
if
why
we
I've
hear-
got a
like,
problem with this word
It's for
banning,
MS, it's for
though.
treatment
They're
of
not
MS.
doing that. They're saying dispensaries can't sell them.
We're gonna
That's
keep
what they're
fighting for
doing
that.
right
Like,
now.
Well, the
even though
city's
we're
banning,
taking
city's
that
banning.
off the shelves
No, they're
now,
banning
it doesn't mean.
dispensaries from selling them.
And we might decide to say, screw
At
the
the
city, we're going to
moment.
put them back on in 6 months or a year. I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens, right? But right now, in this time of great uncertainty, when we're not sure what's going on and where we're trying to work with the city, I would
It's safe
personally,
now.
for my dispensary, rather err slightly on the side of caution so I can keep supplying my patients, so I can hopefully keep my doors open,
Well,
so I can hopefully keep as many
It's
other
safe now.
dispensaries'
On
doors
behalf of
open as
CAMCD
possible.
and the BC Compassion
You know,
Club
like-
Society, I was lobbying City Council for a long time. I was doing a lot of follow-up with city staff, trying to get them to regulate. I kept actually advising the San Francisco model, which includes bylaws around personal growing, very simple rules about packaging, about edibles. It was Coastal Health that had the issue with edibles, and again, it gets into the dosing. How do you even label it? That's a giant problem that states, like I said, have been spending
Vancouver
$1
can't
million
deal with that.
trying to figure it out. Exactly. It's not their job. They shouldn't have to spend the money. They don't have the time and the expertise, right? It doesn't make sense for them to take that on.
But activists like us that have been around this 20 years, I know that 15, 10 years ago, none of us were talking about the dangers of cannabis. You know, we were talking about how it was safer than caffeine. Now all of a sudden there's all this testing and arbitrary restrictions and
Cannabis itself is safe. The plant itself is very safe, right? I mean, it can be quite hallucinogenic, though. LSD is also safe. You don't overdose or die from taking LSD. In fact, LSD is probably safer than marijuana in terms of the ratio. But it's also like, I wouldn't want my kid eating an LSD tab. I wouldn't want to take an LSD tab by accident. I've taken it 100 times. It's a wonderful thing. But I still think there should be rules around that kind of stuff. And marijuana extracts can be as powerful as LSD. It can be extremely, if you eat, I mean, I've eaten 10 cookies just for the pleasure of experiencing it. But it's a very powerful experience. And I think that people have the right not to have that experience if they don't want to have it. And I think especially in the very early days of legalization, I mean, these things take time. We didn't go from homosexuality not being a crime to gay marriage, like at the same time. It took like a long time to get between those things, right? So we're going to suffer discrimination as a culture and as marijuana users, even when it's legalized and the law is not in place. We're still going to have cities and municipalities banning our cultural spots. We're still going to have discrimination against how we get to keep our children, against finding employment. We're going to still have a lot of battles that we're discriminated against in all these ways, right?
That's where we as activists need to step in.
We got to pick our battles. We
We
got to pick our battles and fight our things.
The regulation of it is huge because you mentioned taking a hit of acid. It's like the problem with
that
some
got you
edibles-
tossed out of the NDP party.
Well, I just mean without
regulation.
regulation, and if you take one tab and it does one thing to you, and you take another tab that's equivalent to 10 tabs, and it looks exactly the same, that's some of the problems. You go to one dispensary and get a cookie, go to another dispensary and get a cookie, or go to another producer.
But
no,
you might
you're
get
not
into a
going to
car
die.
accident because you're too high.
But you may end up
think
way
you're
too
gonna die.
much.
You might think you're going to die.
Yes,
that happens a lot.
exactly.
We've heard the funny cop. You know, people get. I don't know. You have the right not to get high if you don't want.
I mean,
Too
Dana,
high.
you've made your position very clear. What would be your position from CAMCD now if they start to move in and start to open up, like I believe they will, these licensed producers, ground dispensing, if you have it, it's where they're not actually selling LP weed out of the stores. They actually just have a doctor and you order and you can have it mailed to the doctor.
Well,
instead
that's
of your
already
house.
happening all across Canada.
It is
right
happening
now,
across
right?
Canada.
Like
That's why again my alarm bells went up, guys, because I'm getting
Those aren't
But the current
dispensaries. Those are
24
clinics.
those are
LPs don't have
clinics.
enough weed.
But
They
again, with
barely
the
have
strike of
enough
the with the
pots to
strike
do
of the
anything.
pen, no, but with the strike of the pen, they boxed up our clubs. Hear me out. They went from saying all you 100 clubs you get in to this lottery. Then they came back and said, well, there's no longer a lottery. It's just you get to apply and you might get in.
I think a lot of clubs aren't going to close and aren't going to comply. They're just going to say, fuck it, come and raid me. And I think there's going to be a long process. I'm not really sure how the city's going to deal with that. And I might be one of those clubs. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure how it's going to happen. I mean, we don't comply with a lot of the things, and I don't know if we're going to make it. And if we don't, I'm not sure what my response will be. I don't think we're just going to shut down and go away, but I'm going to try to work with the rules as much as we can. And I don't think anybody really knows. It's kind of a big experiment, and the city's making a lot of mistakes. They're doing a lot of stuff right. They're not raiding us. They're not, but I think that people in Edmonton or in Saskatchewan or in Winnipeg, if their city said that we're going to do what Vancouver's doing, I think they would be like, yeah, this is a huge victory. Oh, we can't sell cookies, but yeah, we're not going to get raided anymore. We're done. Now it's a better argument to have how many meters have you got to be from a school than how many years in prison are you going to get.
If
got to acknowledge those are
if
different
it's
debates
still
to have.
at the end of the day, just so we're clear, let's throw the edibles. Let's throw the edibles out of this discussion now, just so we're clear. I mean, the main thing to understand is that it looked, and the perception to a lot of the cannabis leaders, including myself, is that the monopoly, not only did they fail in getting the genetics after Allard, but it looked like they were trying to move in. And I continue, like you said, the clinics are across Canada. They've been very open and said, we're going to pop up in every friggin' region, and we're going to take over supply and distribution. So then all the club owners are saying, well, what's going on? We don't know. You know, how did CAMCD get sold trade membership? And then, of course, there's a connection between Hillary Black and Bedrocan, which spooked a few people. And you got to look at how all this links up here.
Advisor to both Bedrocan. She's a director of patient services, and she's an advisor to CAMCD. You have to understand, again, this was 2010. Riel Kapler did a lot of the work with the University of British Columbia to develop the standards that CAMCD has, which are best practices. I know that there were questions around where the best practices came from. Yeah. There are also, as I said earlier, the behavior that we've all been following as the oldest dispensaries in Canada that have allowed this kind of environment to flourish.
Yeah, no, I've read the practices. I mean, what the practices are is they set out what's...
I think it's people, like, they don't really know what's going on, and they don't really, they see other things. And you get, like with anything, when you get more well-known and people see you, they start to think there's something going on, or there's some conspiracy, or you're really doing something else, or I don't know. But I'm not. I'm not trying to monopolize the marijuana industry in Vancouver or Canada. Like, I don't even want to.
That's why we have.
I'm going to retire and go live on a beach somewhere and write funny rhyming books about marijuana. That's what I like doing. The Dr. Seuss thing, it's not going to make me any money. Like, it's not like I get rich selling my fucking Dr. Seuss book or whatever, right? But that's actually what I like doing. That's what I would really, if pot's legal, when we're done, I'm not going to be the guy with like the big marijuana outlet who's rocking the thing. I'm going to be like writing funny books on the beach somewhere and happy that we finally ended prohibition in Canada and that I maybe had some role to play in that, right? But like that's where I'm coming from anyways.
Well, again,
maybe she wants to take
I don't want to write the books. No, hell no.
Dominate the marijuana industry.
I mean, there is no doubting. You guys have done a lot for the
that's
community.
The kind of stuff I like.
The CAMCD city giving CAMCD, you know, saying what defines a compassion club.
It's because they can't. It's because they can't figure out. Like, they can't decide who you're selling marijuana to, right? So they're making this for everybody, right? Yeah. And I wasn't even sure when they were first doing these rules. Like, are they actually just letting us sell to everybody, or are they going to have some other kind of medical thing? But it's very hard for the city to be like, your naturopath's going too easy on people. Like, how the hell are they supposed to regulate that? They can't. So they're not doing that at all, right? So what they've done is they've given CAMCD that responsibility of but the vast majority of places I think are not going to go for the Compassion Club model. I think they're going to go for the other model. Although I don't really know how it's going to all play out. Like, it's all kind of, and we get
what
varying
matters.
answers
What
from city
matters is what you
officials,
said. What you said here tonight on the show is what matters, because that changes perceptions.
People should trust us. Well, like, if you want, I mean, the people who created CAMCD put this together. Like, if somebody, I mean, I haven't heard any accusation from somebody saying, they wouldn't give me membership because they're trying to monopolize. I applied for membership and they wouldn't do it. Like, no one's coming out and saying that I've seen. Nobody's claiming that we're not being fair in our processes or that we're, you know. And so if there was something like that going on, or only a few dispensaries got to be this, we've been trying to get people to join CAMCD for years, right? And like to get involved in the group, and it'll still be a minority of places, but. I don't know. It's not though. I wouldn't have written the rules
again,
like that.
Guys, what
and
matters?
I certainly had all the input that I had was public, right? I mean, I didn't get any calls in advance before the rules came out. After the rules came out, I testified at City Hall. I wrote several emails, which are on the city website, and you can read them if you want to see what I said or whatever. And then we had a meeting with Kerry Jang with a few dispensaries afterwards just to talk about, which anybody can get, by the way. You want to talk to your city councilors, call them up and get a meeting, right? It's not like I got some special power or whatever, right? But that was just to try to get some clarity. But I mean, that's. I wish, I kind of don't wish they called me beforehand, because then everyone would blame me for the shitty rules they wrote.
Well, they called me.
But it would have been nice to have more input. Like, I wish,
questions, right? They called me with questions.
I wish there'd been more back and
operation, and
because there's a lot of
they didn't actually tell me what
your position here tonight is going to help not only myself when people ask me questions, but it's going to help our viewers. They're going to now know that CAMCD is not out to sell LP weed. They're not in bed with this
read our mission statement. Read
that stuff anyways.
the,
But anyway, so there you go. I'm glad we can clear some of that stuff up.
So
Caleb, if he ever wants to interview me for an article or get a quote, if he's writing about me, I'm happy to like talk about stuff, and doesn't have to agree with what I'm saying. You can say Dana lied to me and told me this and this, but at least like get a quote from me if he's gonna like speculate about my intentions and my ethics or whatever. Like, I think it's due diligence to like.
Well, again, this is why I apologize.
Well, I did it,
for my
because like I
writer.
said,
Everyone has to like me.
You
You don't have to agree with me or whatever.
But you know, there is a lot. Again, I pointed out the reason of these optics. I highly suggest if you read up on some of this and you read up what I'm talking about, you'll understand why the optics looks very bad. But your statement today, Dana, you're a man of your word. Nobody's ever challenged that. Your statement today is something I'm going to stand by because we've known each other a very long time.
We'll see
You've
what all
never
plays
broken
out,
your
but
word.
I think it's, you know, I cannot imagine a future where I'm like selling Tilray cannabis. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, and banning shatters. These are things I just don't want to see our culture get any further ripped apart.
Shatters got to be made more safely.
And cream, it's not
I
just shatters.
I don't even sell shatter. In fact, I already banned shatter in my dispensaries. You can for that if you want, bro, because we haven't sold dispensaries.
Shatters, solves, creams.
We focus on
frankly, the
bubble
thing is,
and
if
water
edible
action
producers
stuff. I
and
don't really like
growers
shatter.
and concentrate makers actually formed their own trade associations and pooled their resources and lobbied for their particular instances, they'd have our full support, and we could, you know, actually maybe make
most of them. There's only a minority that even do. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's well. I've been getting interrupted all night. Are you kidding me?
Well, you know what? It's also been a hot topic, and I appreciate you guys coming in. And again, for the record, when I call something out, I called out all 3 dispensaries who banned down the edibles because I believe I'm worried about patients.
CAMCD, and as I said, as the president of the organization and the person that's been carrying a lot of the work.
But CAMCD, what's your position to your CAMCD membership to take their edibles off the shelves?
No, they don't have to do that.
That's not part of the membership.
Okay, so
but they have to comply with all city bylaws, and the city bylaw that they're applying for as a license says that. So
that's what I mean with that word compliance. So again, this goes back to my question to you: that if the city tomorrow writes in a new word that says you now cannot sell this, are you going to comply?
No, because the city bylaws don't.
No, that's not. They're not going to. And they haven't, like they've said, they can't regulate the product, right? That's why they banned food in that roundabout way of just banning food, because they can regulate where food is sold. That's under their power. So we can't sell non-psychoactive brownies either, right? We can't sell any food products, and that's their way of avoiding regulating the marijuana products, because they said we can't stop you from selling anything else because we don't want to regulate that. But we already don't sell shatter because I don't like how it's made, and I think it's dangerous not to use so much, although it does have weird residues in it sometimes. And
there's people open
blasting.
There's dangerous stuff
out there. It can be dangerous.
But I tell you, if someone else keeps selling it and they get raided, I will go and stand by them. I would try to donate and support them. I would stand up for them, but I don't know if I always have to be the one to like defy the things and like be the people can make their own decisions. I want to serve my patients, and if I keep selling edibles, I will lose that fight. I will have to shut down. I will have less money to donate to worthy causes like yours and many others. My patients won't get access to their cannabis, and I won't be able to fight to get edibles reinstated as something that we want to have in the future.
Again,
so to me, you've got to choose your battles, and I'm choosing to not fight the edible battle right now at this time for the current time, because there's a lot of other things going on, and I want to try to stay open. But I also, I'm willing to make some compromises, but there's some I'm not willing to make, and we'll see what it comes to, right? But we're not going to get everything we want on the first gasp. But even these rules are missing tons of things. It's going to be a lot of negotiating the peace is way less fun than fighting the war. Like, I'm just going to go against the system and do whatever I want. Screw you guys. That's the fun part, especially if you don't get busted or if you can. But the hard part is, okay, how many meters do we got to be from a school? Like, do we have to be any 300? How about 250? Like, all that bullshit stuff. That's not really fun. But that's what legalization means. It means all these rules, some of which we're not going to like, some of which we're not going to be cool with, and like put some restrictions. But the advantage is, we don't go to jail. They stop arresting people. We get to be accepted in society. When we call the cops to help us, they help us. They don't arrest us. Like, we get to be part of society. And maybe we can't sell cookies for a while. And maybe we have to pay taxes. Maybe I got to pay GST, which I don't want to pay either. But maybe there's
reasonable
there's some of those
policy
things, and some of them will fight, and some will accept now and then fight. And I don't necessarily have all the answers. Like everybody else, I'm making it up as I go along. Like, I don't, but I know what I want. My vision is what I want, and I want people to be able to grow their own marijuana. I want farmers to be able to grow cannabis, high THC and high CBD marijuana in large scale. I want legal marijuana to be cheap, like $1 or less a gram for manicured buds and $1 or less a gram for extract as well. Those are the prices that I think still allow for lots of taxation, allow for revenue for everybody involved. But these products should be cheap like other agricultural products. And but I wish we could do that now. But I got to sell cannabis at the going rate. I mean, you're in the world we live in, right? But that's what I'm working for. That's what I want to have happen.
To be clear, that's where what you want kind of coincides with CAMCD, because CAMCD promotes community-based distribution and the patient care side of dispensary industry more than anything else.
And this is our position as patient and patient providers, which is part of the reason we make sure that we're taking exception with any sort of attempt to obstruct that, which the monopoly.
Right,
no one's done more for patients than CAMCD, right? Like no one's done more for patients than the dispensaries that put themselves at risk, and which often get busted and get raided and have problems. I've been lucky and whatever enough not to get raided, but plenty of people have. And you didn't. When I opened, I didn't know if we were going to have problems. When these guys, when Hillary opened, she certainly didn't know if she wasn't going to get raided or have problems.
She did get raided at her first location.
She did have problems, yeah, absolutely, and we've had other things happen, and not our dispensary raided, but we've had, it's still an illegal thing. It's still
was raided
illegal
5
to grow it
times
and get it there.
Took on the edible case, right?
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
actually
We've got a long way to
dispensary
go,
industry
but
that we're
that's what I'm saying.
But I would like to see us trying to think the best of each other and try to, not be attacking each other and not sort of making accusations and sit on both sides and said, I hear people say crazy stuff about Mark, they say crazy stuff about you, I'm sure they say crazy stuff about me and others. And
well, again, this is why I love doing this show and we do it live.
You guys kept leaving my names out of it. It was kind of funny. It was you were kind of making slights towards my work. I know, and then going after Dana.
Because I'm in the media more, I think.
But we go back a lot of years, and this is the thing, the cannabis culture is shaking up because of this monopoly, because of this new legal supply as of April 1st, and it's not necessarily us. And I think honestly, there'd be people that want agitation, but without clarification on shows like this, where community leaders can get together and say, "This is my real position," and go on record on a live show.
But you could ask that before making accusations, though, too, right?
Well, there's not accusations. There's no.
This isn't overall. This is a bigger thing. It's
I'll
not
ask you to I'll ask you to point to where
sources.
my accusation is over and above what I stated, that you banned or blocked edibles at your locations. Simply what I said. It's a fact.
Well, butter is an edible. Olive oil is an edible.
And I'm glad you read that article about the Hells Angels being the model that we want. I don't know what.
Don't even get me started on that. That was pulled for a reason, and I apologize for that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been hard because we've been getting attacked from the LPs and blamed
all
for
of us.
their
That's what I mean.
not
There are
making money.
agitators.
People are thinking
We've said our
fentanyl
piece.
came out
That's
of dispensaries, right?
There are the agitators, and there's
crazy
people out there, and you guys have made your point clear. Again, banning edibles is something that clearly you're falling within the regulations within the city.
We're taking them off the shelves. The city is the one banning them.
The shatters
We're
are
not
not just shatter. Let's just say the sols, the creams, the hashes. All the
I'm
stuff
selling
that
creams
patients need.
out of dispensaries now. That's part of my pushing thing. And others should too, right? I'm actually pushing creams. We're selling them at Mark's shop. I've got my creams in a bunch of places. Because I think they should be out all over the place, right?
Right, no, I'm just saying, should they move in to say, we're going to ban this? What I'd like to hear is you guys are saying, I'm going to take a position against that, which means that when people ask me, what are they going to do? I can say, they're going to stand with us. They're going to stand against that.
As always.
Of course, and that's what we're here. That's what the clarification is here for.
To bring our movement together, to encourage people to overcome their
shouldered a giant burden trying to get edibles allowed under the Supreme Court. They're members of CAMCD. Why would they work against themselves like that?
Yeah, and now they're we don't want edibles. And they're working in Victoria to try to change that so they don't put that in. And hopefully we can get other cities
to
do the
and they haven't actually made that request the way Vancouver's did.
Yeah, it would be great. I would love it if the next couple of cities to legalize or to basically legalize or to license dispensary don't put that ban in. That would be great if we can get that change happening, and then it would be easier to work on Vancouver and go, look, Victoria's doing it. Why are you guys being such a bunch of stick in the muds? Let us have our cookies, right? And I would not. In fact, I'd be shocked if these rules don't change a year from now. Yeah. And especially if we see a new government federally, things are going to open up way more. Yeah. And I also think a lot of shops might just start selling joints anyways. If you got a bong shop and there's all these dispensaries, what's to stop you from just selling hash grams or whatever out of your place? I think
there's all kinds
the people
of
are going to start just
still
selling bits of weed
Vancouver.
openly, and it's going to be I think ultimately this is going to mean that lots of people are going to start skirting the rules and starting just to sell little bits of hash out of their place. Or there was a museum in Switzerland, because Switzerland had laws where you couldn't sell marijuana for narcotic purposes, so they'd sell you flowers or a house plant or a hash collector coin. And it was a coin with a design on it, printed with hash stamped on it. I kind of bet places will start doing stuff like that. I might start doing stuff like that from a different location even. Because if they're not going to, if they're saying we're not arresting anybody for marijuana trafficking, the worst we're going to do is come and fine you or do your... I think people are going to start pushing the limits more. I think that a lot of the dispensaries that aren't licensed are probably going to stay open for a long time. I just suppose it's going to take a long time, and a lot of it's kind of just for show to make them look like they're doing something. But I think it's going to be a slow process. I think that 6 months from now, definitely every dispensary that's open is going to be open. In fact, I predict more dispensaries in Vancouver 6 months from now than there are now. Because nothing's really going to change. People are going to go, oh, and they're going to be opening more spots. And I think a lot of people are also just like, well, if I can stay open for a year and sell a bunch of weed, and then that was a good year, right? And then, so I think that it's still really in flux, and
so
that
again,
things are still opening up more and more.
The thing is, in closing, is that we could agree that the LP, again, this is the capitalist cronies. If anybody is capitalist cronies, that's who it is. They were set up under this scheme where they have clinics that are on the ground.
That's a big
I
brush.
write articles
I
all
don't
the
think
time about
everybody in there.
But I wrote the article, right?
There's only 25. There's 1,200.
Didn't I write an article like greedy LPs don't care about patients or whatever and stuff? I'm pretty sure.
Well, honestly, John Conroy was sitting right here. Mr. Conroy has said that they're set up for legalization, and honestly, I'm okay.
That's what they're banking on. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them got in there, especially I'd say Tilray or Tweed because they're liberal. But a lot of them, they get in the thing that we can just hold the ground. When legalization happens, we'll be in on the ground floor. Even if they don't get a monopoly, or even if they start giving out, they're still the first ones through the door. And they've got some of them might go bankrupt, but otherwise, I mean, I think but they don't really know what's coming either. I think it's a gamble, and some of them are lobbying and doing this and that, but their lobbying is not successful so far because they're not getting anything. I mean, they're having a very hard time. So
I'm not sure
I don't think they're getting the things. Yeah, I think they're not really getting what they want. I mean, they got the half-assed thing with edibles. They would, if they could sell cookies and all the edibles that they wanted, and they could do it better because they actually have the ability in a big scale to standardize it. I mean, they could make better extracts or things, or at least in a safer way, I think. But they can't, right? So if I was them, I'd be like, we didn't even get...
Only if they hired
they got
the people
nothing.
that have been
They're getting
doing
screwed
it
over by
all
Health
along
Canada,
outside
right?
of
Like,
that industry, right?
So just in closing, where can people find CAMCD? How can you get how much is it to join CAMCD? So
$1 million a year minimum, and it's got to be in
Sign
cash,
Benz,
delivered. Made a check. Actually, checks made out to me personally is good. No, I don't know. It depends on what you want to do.
It's a $500 application fee for the trade membership, and then there's a membership fee monthly of $100 a month, which is going to have to change because it's ridiculous. If you look at other associations in Canada,
by changing.
it has
Yeah,
to
it's got to be
up.
up more than that.
There's no way. We have to, at this point, we have almost 30 members. We actually can't keep doing this for free on the sides of our desks while we have other jobs, so we actually need to hire staff at this point, more full-time. And so it's... and other trade associations that have standards and things like this can cost anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 a month, depending on what the association is.
We're never going to be that high.
We're never going to be that high.
Or as you guys know, I said to you before.
And by the way, it's a society, so people can join and they can run for board positions. They can take on.
Not with the trade membership, though. With the certified,
but if you get into it, if you got to get into it.
The trade members are now allowed to be on committees and things because we're just. You got to understand, it was 5 of us kind of holding the line on dispensaries.
As I said before, my problem, again, the same issue I have with the monopoly, having a sole proprietor over supply and distribution. You know, I wasn't necessarily agreeing with the sole proprietor over CAMCD setting what a compassion club is. I think the city should do that.
Well, we didn't say what a compassion club was. Our trade membership is
no,
not for
the city has put you as the ambassador.
You could develop your standards. I said this to you last time we were on. I was on the show.
It's not fixed forever. It's going to change a lot over the coming years.
Well, the language is pretty clear.
I think it's good. Yeah, right now I think it's a positive
it's written
thing.
Into the
I see nothing wrong with that.
But once there's laws in place, you can change them and work to lobby to get those changed.
The most important thing I heard tonight here, guys.
I don't know, right? Like, we're not sure if Victoria will have this 2-tiered system and do all
no,
this
we've
stuff.
heard they're going all medical. We've heard they're the most
important thing that matters tonight is your position that you made, that you're not part of this monopoly, you don't care to be part of it, and you won't be selling LP weed. That's what matters to me and the people that are highly concerned. Well, no, believe me, but some people would. I was offered a check to throw out, to go grow.
Of course.
I mean, don't kid yourselves. These guys are trying to, but I'm glad to hear our culture isn't done in.
You can understand, we've been around for the longest period of time in this industry, and so if we didn't join back in 2012, if we didn't join back in 2012, we're not about to do it now under the same system.
No one's ever offered me a check to throw anything.
I know. Okay, I'd like to thank. We went a long time. I'd like to thank both Dana Larsen and Jamie Shaw for coming on. Representatives of CAMCD, Sensible BC, the dispensary. Check them out. Get in contact with them and understand their position. You know, people out there who are thinking that they may be out to sell LP cannabis or working with that monopoly. it's been set straight here tonight on Cannabis in Canada, and we, of course, will be continuing to make that statement very clear in the future and support CAMCD's continued agenda to, again, help dispensaries and help patient providers here in British Columbia and across Canada. I'm assuming that's the way that it's going to go. So on that note, this is Jason Wilcox. Stay tuned for more in cannabisincanada.ca. Cheers.
Cannabis in Canada.